Hello, I'm O Speaks, also known as OT Speaks. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, share. Uh, everyone knows. Well, I won't say everyone knows. I don't want to slander people, but I think everyone there's a consensus in this country that politicians are corrupt. I don't care if you're on the right. I don't care if you're on the left. You'll hear so many people as you speak, especially if you. I mean, as soon as the topic of politics comes up, you'll hear people say, I don't do politics. I don't like politicians. I don't talk politics because they're all corrupt." And that's a pretty normal thing to hear in this country, which is kind of scary. But part of having freedom of speech is saying things like that and acknowledging it. Today, I want to talk about one of the ways that politicians become corrupt. There's many, but I think it's important to be more specific rather than just say, "Oh, politicians are corrupt." I don't like politics because uh, they all lie. They're all liars. These are things that you just hear. You're going to hear. I don't care who you speak to. You're going to hear people saying these things because, to an extent, it's true that a lot of politicians will say anything to get elected. A lot of politicians will do anything to get elected. So today, I want to speak about one in particular. I don't have that much media today. But I still want to go over this topic. It's very important to me. It's very important to everyone, whether you know it or not, whether you agree that it's important or not. Corruption in politics is bad, very, very bad. Um, I think it's also fair to say that you don't have to do something illegal to be corrupt. A lot of times you can do stuff that is technically legal, and you can work your way through the system. How you doing, Miss Just Jay? You can work your way through the system to get away with things that people it just doesn't sit right with them. Um, the other way would be illegal things, but I'm not talking about illegal right now. I'm just talking about corruption. Some people will do it out in the open. Nancy Pelosi is one of those people who does that stuff out in the open. Why? Because it's legal. And because I won't say most of her career, a lot of her career, she was Speaker of the House. She can block anything to stop what she's been doing for well over a decade now. Well, maybe a decade. Either way, so I want to talk about that because I think it's very, very important. I lean politically to the right. I want to let everyone know this. Um, if you know somebody to the left, or if you yourself is to the left, I would like to have a conversation with you, especially when we're talking politics on any issue. But I like to listen to people with opposing perspectives, and more than that, I like to actually speak with them just to pick their brains, see why they think the way they think, how they come to conclusions, what they think solutions are. So if you know anybody who's off to the left, I would like to have a conversation with them. Send them my way. Have them like, subscribe, and share. Whether they like or not, have them dislike. I don't care. Just have them engage because I think it's important to speak with people you disagree with. Um, and that's something I like to do. I don't like to really debate. I just like to have conversations, especially on things that matter, which politics matters to everyone. Politics impacts everyone's lives, whether you agree to that or not. It just does. So ignoring it doesn't help anybody. And then just engaging and going straight down the line on either side is not a good thing either. So I just want to have that conversation if you know anybody. The media is all to the left, including Fox News. So I'm to the right of them. Uh, but again, I'd like to have a conversation if you know anybody. Um, Share the video with them, ask them what they think. If they think I'm full of it, send them my way. I'd love to talk to them. Again, it wouldn't be contentious. I used to have a guy on, we called him Liberal Dave, and he came on. Liberal Dave was the kind of person who was condescending and would insult you if you disagree with him. And he would just throw out talking points, but not really respond to anything you say or your responses. So I prefer to not have that, but I wouldn't mind that either because it's funny, it's entertaining to have somebody like him on. But again, my point isn't to debate. I just want to speak with people. So I'm going to start today off with a Joe Rogan video of him speaking about Nancy Pelosi, and we're just going to work our way through that. And then at the end of this live, I have an update on the Autopen, the biggest story. So Joe Biden, again, not being sentient, not running the country is the biggest political scandal in the history of this country. The Autopen is a big part of that. But we'll go over that. We'll go over that. We'll go over that. So let's get to Joe Rogan. Boom. And his opinion on Nancy Pelosi.
or that this is kind of crooked system that will allow someone like Nancy Pelosi, who makes, what does she make, like 200 grand a year?
Yeah.
She's worth $150 million.
Actually, as of June 20th of this year, she's now worth $261 million. This is impossible, but we'll finish this out and then we'll discuss that.
How the fuck did that happen?
It's mafia,
bro.
It's
when you look,
mafia.
if insider trading is illegal, how the fuck is it legal for her husband to make all these purchases of stock right before these giant deals came out that she negotiated?
Yeah.
And then he gets this windfall, and they get insanely wealthy
over and over and over again.
Over and over and over again.
Over and over and over
and
again.
There's no investigation into it. There's no talking about it. It's fucking wild, man. It's wild shit.
Yeah. It's mafia shit going down. 100%.
Yeah, and they like think that like Putin's a mobster. Like, what are you? What are you? Putin kills people. Oh, you don't think any of those people kill people?
So, before we get to this tweet, for at least a decade, people like myself have been calling on Congress and presidents and all the candidates to stop allowing Congress people, members of Congress, to and their significant others. That's an important thing to add. I didn't want to forget that. To stop allowing them from being able to trade in the market while they are in office. The reason is, especially if you're in legislation, you have influence over the economy. You have influence over industries. So, for instance, if you're going to be over agriculture and you're on one of the House committees that oversees agriculture, right, or the Department of Agriculture, and you're about to, I'll just make something up. You're about to stop allowing some form of they're not supposed to use pesticides anymore, but we'll use that as an example, just to throw it out there so you guys have an idea of what I'm talking about. You're going to decide to no longer allow big ag to use pesticides, right? You can now have your husband or wife, depending on what you are, go and pull stocks out of we'll just say raid. I don't know. I don't know what they use. I'm just giving examples here. You can pull stocks out of a company that has a direct impact on the things that you're deciding on. You can do it early, and then you can make money. You can short it, or you can gamble on things that you know. Or it's not really a gamble. You can put money into things that you're going to influence in a positive way. And this is what Nancy Pelosi did. And I'm going to show some very specific things on how she did it. It's incredible. Again, not illegal, but she's over the ability to get rid of this kind of practice to where you're making, again, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars off of the market because you have a sway over regulation. You have a sway over government contracts. Who's going to get the contract? Well, if I invested in a contract and it's a defense contractor, before it comes out that they got the contract, their stock's going to skyrocket. And this is how people have made money in Congress for at least a decade, longer than that. We should not allow this. This is not what politicians are going to Washington for, or to DC for, Washington, DC. This isn't why they're going there. They're supposed to be going there to serve us. And what they're doing is going over there to make money. On average, congressional members make I think it's $175,000 a year, right? Give or take, because it's been going up. I don't know what it is right now. And if you have certain chairmanships or you're over different committees, you make a little bit more. Nancy Pelosi, I believe, well, we'll get into that in a little bit. I don't want to go too much into that. But Nancy Pelosi made $167,000 when she first came into office. In a little bit, we're going to go over to where she's at now. And it's insane. It doesn't make sense. You saw right there as Joe Rogan was talking, he thought she made, I think he said $150 million. She is at over $260 million. She's been in office for 38 years. making between $165,000 and $170,000. While she was a speaker, I think she was making over 200. But either way, there's no way she could amass the amount of money that she amassed. And again, we're going to go over some ways that she did it. There's no way people who come in to office making 160, 170,000 should ever leave with millions of dollars. It doesn't add up. It just the math doesn't math correctly. And if we get rid of their ability to trade in a market, we get rid of a lot of corruption that happens. Now, you still have lobbyists. There's still a lot of other ways that they make money, but this one is the most obvious and the one that they really could get rid of because it's done right out in the open. They have to report it. I think we need to stop that. But with all that said, something happened, and Donald Trump got mad at a man named Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley is a senator, and he's a diehard MAGA senator, like diehard. Everybody loves the guy that's in MAGA. Everybody who doesn't love him is outside of MAGA. But what Josh Hawley did is he blocked a review of Nancy Pelosi's trading practices because they were going to look into her for corruption. This made Trump mad. It made a lot of people mad and it confused a lot of people. I think it was intentional, but Pelosi endorsed it. Yeah, there's no reason to look for me. I like this Josh Hawley guy. Who is he again? Well, he blocked a Senate investigation on her, so she was all in. Again, I think he did this on purpose, but let's read what Donald Trump said on Truth Social. Donald Trump said, why would one Republican senator, Josh Hawley from the great state of Missouri, join with all the Democrats to block a review sponsored by Senator Rick Scott and with the support of almost all other Republicans of Nancy Pelosi's stock trading over the last 25 years? It makes perfect sense. It is confusing. I would be mad if I was Trump too. It says the information was inappropriately released just minutes before the vote. Very much like sabotage. The Democrats, because of our tremendous achievements and success, have been trying to target me for a long period of time, and they're using Josh Hawley, who I got elected twice, as a pawn to help them. I wonder why Hollywood passed a bill that Nancy Pelosi is absolutely in love with. Absolutely, it says in absolute love with. He's playing right now into the dirty hands of the Democrats. It's a great bill for her and her husband, but so bad for the country. I don't think Republicans want to see their president, who has had unprecedented success, targeted because of the whims of a second-tier senator named Josh Hawley. This is why I love Trump. Anyone can get it. If you make him mad, he's going to let you know. You won't hide it. There will be no sneak dissing. It's just going to happen. So again, this confused everyone because Hawley's a MAGA guy. Why would this happen? No one understood why. So apparently he got on the phone with Josh Hawley and then they had a conversation.
I had a good chat with the president earlier this evening, and he reiterated to me he wants to see a ban on stock trading by people like Nancy Pelosi and members of Congress, which is what we passed today. I think it is absolutely vital we put a stop to this. Pelosi shouldn't just be investigated. She should be prosecuted. And we need to make what she is doing and other members of Congress is doing illegal. I mean, you shouldn't be able to go up to Congress and get rich by trading on information that only you have and not members of the public. Right now, lots of members of Congress are getting by with it. We need to make the whole thing illegal.
So when you spoke to the president, did he explain why he called you second tier?
Well, I think that the president, a number of people who are opposed to banning stock trading had said to the president that he would be covered by the bill. He'd have to sell Mar-a-Lago and sell assets. Not the case at all. The president and the vice president, all their assets are totally exempted. And here's the point. This is what we talked about. The point of this bill is to ban members of Congress from trading on the information that only they have. I've supported this bill for years, Jesse. I think we call it the Pelosi Act. It is named for her because she is the poster child of this kind of behavior. It ought to be illegal and it ought to be prosecutable.
So,
All right. So before we get to that, here's what I think happened. I think Hawley swerved the Democrats because no matter what Trump wants, they don't want. What's going on, Jay? Yeah, I agree. Nancy, she has been hustling. And that's what we're talking about today, because it all came to a head last week, over the last few days, actually. So by blocking the review of Nancy Pelosi and taking her name off the bill, because it was originally called the Pelosi bill, that got her to say, okay, well, he's acting in good faith, right? And because they've always been against the idea, it's usually because it's called the Pelosi bill and it's targeting her directly. So what he did was he said, we'll block a review, not investigations, just their review. I'm going to block that, see if I can get her on board with this bill. I'll take her name off the bill. And in my opinion, this is the only time this can ever get done under this administration, because there's no way any other administration is going to be bold enough to ask the legislature to make a law to stop them from making money. Like, honestly, I think that another thing that needs to be taken away from them is the ability to give themselves raises, but that's a completely different conversation. But to convince all legislators to stop something that makes them all millions of dollars is a tough sell. And I think what Hawley did was he weighed the options, and I think he went with this. And I think he took the opportunity to actually get this trading bill through. Because again, I don't think they'll ever be able to do this again. I could be wrong, but it's my opinion that I think he did this on purpose and played the game, and I'm really happy that he got it through. Because now, going forward, they're not going to be able to do this anymore. And it really doesn't make any sense, because, well, it's technically not insider trading, because they're not inside of these companies. They're not making decisions, and they're not manipulating the market from within. These are people that just have knowledge, foresight, because they're writing bills, again, on all of these things. So they're having a direct impact. It's very easy for them to just deny it and say, I didn't know it was gonna do this. And we're gonna look at her gains in a little bit. And some of the things that she's done. It's outrageous what Nancy Pelosi has done. But Trump spoke about it, and we'll just play this.
Nancy Pelosi became rich by having inside information. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful. So in that sense, I'd like it, but I'd have to really see I study these things very carefully, and this just happened. So I'll take a look at it. But conceptually, I like it. And what I do think is Nancy Pelosi should be investigated, because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street, save a few. How did that happen? It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock, and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made. And she ought to be investigated.
Let me just read.
And that's what she's doing. This is CNN. They're going to apologetically ask her about what Trump said. Now, mind you, they used Hawley. Well, they thought they were using Josh Hawley. They told, or he had to communicate to Trump that this has nothing to do with you. This has to do with Congress, because there were people who did not want it to go through on the right and on the left, saying that he's going to have to sell Mar-a-Lago. He's going to have to get rid of his assets. Trump, you're not going to be able to have anything to do with the market. And he's like, that's why he said in that little speech there, conceptually, I like this, but I need to understand exactly what's going on here. He doesn't write laws, so it's a little bit different. The different branches of government. Now, I don't think he should be able to trade in the market either. I think crypto's fine, but I don't think he should be able to trade in stocks while the president's in office, because they can also have an impact. We saw, just with words, the president can have an impact pretty much on anything. We saw when Obama had that conversation about a police officer at, I think it was Harvard, and one of his friends got pulled over, and he said they behaved stupidly. The whole world turns on this officer, and it's like, wow, just from a president's words, he can have an impact, especially in the market. So I believe that the president should also be excluded from being able to trade while they're in office. I just don't see a need for it. I really don't. But anyway, CNN asked Nancy Pelosi about it, and listen to what she has to say.
What he said. I'm sorry that we had some sort of technical issue. Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider. But
so again, that's why you want to get I don't know if I would extend it to siblings, but at least the spouse or significant other. You want to extend it to them because she's directly benefiting from what her husband Paul supposedly is a master at doing, which is trading stocks, selling and buying at the perfect time.
The president has his own exposure, so he's always projecting. And let's not give him any more time on that, please. We're going forward here, and I'm very proud of my family.
All right, so this is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is known as the greatest stock and money manager of all time, or amongst the greatest of all time. He's worth $140 billion with a B. $1 billion, and he's made all his money or most of his money in long-term investments. He lives a very, very, very frugal and humble life. I think now he used to drive a Honda. Now I think he's driving a 2015 Cadillac. He eats McDonald's every single morning. He eats their cheapest breakfast every single morning, and he drinks a Coke. This guy's got $140 billion, and he eats the value breakfast meal from McDonald's every single morning. What's going on, Uncle Al? He doesn't really spend money. I don't know why at his age, because I think he's in his 80s now, maybe even 90s. I don't know why. He's never going to be able to spend his money, but this is just who he is. He's really, really good with money, amongst the best ever. In the last 10 years, his investments have grown by 185%. 2015 Cadillac, yeah, okay. The dude can own anything. $140 billion that he's driving a 10-year-old car. It's phenomenal. I think that's awesome. I think more politicians need to be like that also. But Nancy Pelosi and her husband Paul have outperformed Warren Buffett over the same time frame by 730%. Now, this would make Paul Pelosi the greatest money manager and stock mind of all time, because it's not possible what they're doing. It doesn't make sense. What's going on, Lou? It's not possible. They outperform Warren Buffett in stock market trading. It doesn't make any sense. They've 4x'd Warren Buffett's gains over the last 10 years. What are we doing here? House Representatives make $174,000. I thought it was $175,000. When Pelosi was Speaker of the House, every time she was Speaker of the House, because whoever's in majority in the House of Representatives, they choose a speaker. So she wasn't always a speaker. During Obama's years, she was a Speaker of the House, and then from 2019 to 2023, so essentially most of Biden's term, she was Speaker of the House. That's when they were in power. She was making $220,000 a year. Her net worth in 1987 was $167,000 or $165,000, something like that, which was her salary for her first year in office. She's been in office 38 years. If she will use her 220 that she made as a speaker, even though that was only a few years of her career, if she never spent a penny ever from her salary, never paid a single dollar in taxes, she would be worth $8.3 million right now. But somehow, Nancy Pelosi is worth $260 million. She's never had another job. Her salary has been between $165,000 and $220,000 a year. It's good money. It's pretty good money. But it is impossible to come up with $260 million from making that amount of money. At most, again, if she's never spent a penny of her earnings never paid a dime in taxes, she still would only be worth just over $8 billion. And no one is asking how she got this money. It's mind-boggling that no one's addressed this. So what Josh Hawley did, in my opinion, was he finally figured out a way to stop this stuff. So I got some of her moves I put down. Let's pull this up. I'm not going to pull it up on the screen. I'm just going to read them to you. Some of the moves made by the Pelosi's. Paul Pelosi received $1.7 million in PPP loans from the federal government. Oh, he doesn't have to repay any of it. Just throw that in there. All those PPP loan people that they were going after the pandemic, he got $1.7 million in PPP loans. Doesn't have to pay it back. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Paul. So just like that, the Pelosi's got almost $2 million. Here we go. In July 2021, Paul purchased 20,000 shares of NVIDIA. We know what NVIDIA is. If you don't, it's a semiconductor company. They do a lot with gaming and stuff like that. He bought 20,000 shares in NVIDIA, which was worth $1 million and $5 million. When he did this, Senate was voting to set aside $52 billion, it says, to boost domestic semiconductor manufacturing and give tax credit for production. Who would know that? Who had insider knowledge that that was going to happen? His wife. So they just so happened to make $5 million off of one stock at the perfect time, right before they passed this legislation. In May of 2021, same year, Paul placed a bet of $6 million on Apple, Amazon, and Google parent company Alphabet. I didn't know they had a parent company. Anyway, and when he did that, the House committee was writing bills reining in the powers of big tech. How did he know? He's just a genius, apparently. This is the same guy who was an alcoholic, who got in accidents and got attacked by that weirdo by letting some strange man in their house. All that stuff is whatever. Anyway, that's a whole different rabbit hole to go down. He invited that guy. Anyway, in March 2021, he purchased $1.9 million worth of Microsoft stock, or Microsoft call options, less than 2 weeks before Microsoft secured a $22 billion government contract with the U.S. Army. And they made headsets for the U.S. Army. How did he know to put $2 million in on Microsoft at that specific moment, just when they so happen to be getting a $22 billion contract? How did he know? In January 2021, there's more. He purchased $1 million of Tesla calls before the Biden administration revealed their plans to shift away from fossil fuel automobiles and incentivize electric vehicle production. How did you know? Tesla was already big then. That's not the stock you buy. It's a weird stock to put a lot of money in. Same with Microsoft. It's a huge stock. That's not the stock you just buy randomly. You have to know something. No one else is going to do something like that unless you have knowledge that something's coming down the pipe. The biggest financial gains of the Pelosi's came from when Paul Pelosi sold 30,000 shares of Google from December 20th, December 23 to the end of December. So he just, this little window, he sold 30,000 shares of Google. Just before the Department of Justice launched an antitrust probe into Google. So Google's almost a sure thing. You have Google stock, you're good. He knew to dump 30,000 shares in Google. Who would do that? Why? Doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It's like selling, this week, or not this week, like 2 weeks ago, selling Bitcoin. It doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? It's still going up. Google's always going up. He sold 30,000 shares right before the Department of Justice launched an antitrust probe into Google. How did he know that was going to happen? Easy. His wife is a very, very powerful politician in the legislature. She's the one who's making these decisions. She's on these committees. And a lot of the times during all this, she was the Speaker of the House. She's deciding what gets put on the table for them. Since 2014, Nancy Pelosi and Paul Pelosi have outperformed the S&P 500. Before we even get to that, if you don't know what the S&P 500 is, that's our economy essentially. It's 500 or 503, but it's the top largest 500 companies, corporations, public, in this country, and it pretty much covers the U.S. economy. Nancy and her husband, since 2014, have outperformed the S&P 500, which is a combination of all of these major companies, the most powerful, the most influential on industry. They outperformed them. How, Paul? How, Nancy? How are you guys doing this? So I want to play this. Good old Warren Buffett. He's got nothing on Paul Pelosi. All right. So, this is San Francisco. This is Nancy Pelosi's. This is her district. This is what's going on there while she's cashing in, going from $167,000 a year to $260 million. This is what's going on in her district. There's no audio on this. I was supposed to be playing this while I was going over how amazing and how savant-like her husband is with money and money management. San Francisco is comparable, if not worse, than Los Angeles, California. If you've ever been to Los Angeles, California, you go downtown, you go near Staples Center, you go a couple blocks west, I believe. You'll see Skid Row. You'll see what does not look like an American anything. It looks like a foreign country. It looks like a really, really bad, impoverished foreign country. San Francisco is very close. This is what's going on in the streets of Nancy Pelosi's district while they're cashing in. And Dianne Feinstein was another one. She passed away last year sometime. But she was another one, filthy rich. Where'd she get her money from? So there's a lot of politicians who come in with money. That's different, in my opinion. But when you come in with less than 200,000 and you gain or amass a total net worth of $260 million, you have to be looked into. You have to be. Because this is where she represents, and she's represented for 38 years. Some of us were kids back then, like small kids. And this woman was running this same area that has gotten increasingly worse. This is insane. There's no way this should ever be. This is the area. Look at the streets. Look at the junk. Look at the garbage. Look at the panhandling. There was some little kids that were selling lemonade. They put up a lemonade stand in their neighborhood, and the police came by and shut them down because they're operating without a license. If you go, and actually it's not just San Francisco, but there's a lot of major cities you can go, and there's a lot of food trucks. They're not operating on the license. You see those people pushing the carts with the corn. They're not operating with a license. You see the ones pushing the ice cream and all that stuff. But they stopped these kids who had a lemonade stand, took the money, and said, "You got to go somewhere. You don't have a license." And a lot of these large cities are like that. They can't make money off of them. But look at this. During this time, during COVID, Paul Pelosi got $1.7 million in PPP loans. What's going on, Paul Thomas? This is what we're looking at here. This is San Francisco. This is where Nancy Pelosi represents. It looks to me like she's representing trash. All these people are selling stuff. You think they have license? You think that guy right there has a license? 9 pair of socks for $5. In Chicago, they used to have people walk through the L trains. And I would ride all the way from the end of the line, 63rd and Ashland. I would ride all the way up north at the time because it's a different line now. It used to be the green line. And it would run from Ashland, 63rd Street, all the way up north, and I would get off at Thorndale, and because I went to high school on the north, so that's a whole different story. I had to, but there would be people who would walk through every cart, and they would sell stuff. They sell tapes at the time. They would sell.
Nancy.
Hold on, let me go back. They would sell tapes. They would sell socks, 9 pair of socks for $5. I'll never forget that because it's just funny to me. Like, it was just funny to me. So Nancy Pelosi, since 2014, has had gains of 731%. The S&P 500 had gains of 230. They have outperformed the S&P 500. If anyone can explain that, I would love to hear it. I would love to pick your brain so I know how to invest differently. I'm in crypto. I don't do stocks. But this, you don't see this. You don't see this. It doesn't make sense. So this is the last video on this topic, and then we'll go to the Autopen. Insane. Certifiably insane. Actually, there's a community on Reddit. There's another one on X. A lot of people, same people. He's going to talk about it in this video. But all they do is watch Nancy Pelosi's stock moves. And that's how they know what to bet on a daily basis. They just watch her and her husband. It's insane. This is literally hundreds of thousands of people watch her moves because they know what she's doing, and her husband's moves because obviously he's being told by her what to do. And they specifically will say, "Oh, Nancy Pelosi just dumped Google. We need to dump now." That's what they're doing. Nancy Pelosi just bought Microsoft. I don't know why, but we're going to buy now because Nancy Pelosi did it. There are hundreds of thousands of traders who do this.
Nancy and Paul Pelosi made a whopping $38 million in stock trades. The question now is how and why? Now, obviously, Paul Pelosi doesn't serve on Capitol Hill because he's married to former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. They're required to disclose their collective stock trades, and Paul seems to have a real knack for it. On December 31st, 2024, he sold $24 million worth of Apple stock, and on the same day, he also sold $5 million worth of artificial intelligence computer chip maker NVIDIA.
So I covered some of these, but he's going into more detail, and you're getting to see how absurd that is. It doesn't make sense. Who is this guy? He doesn't know anything.
Stock was 138, so Pelosi sells $5 million worth of stock. Today, less than a month later, it's closed at 118, a 13% drop since Pelosi unloaded. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Apparently, the stock trading prowess of the Pelosi family is so widely known that there is an X account called the Nancy Pelosi Stock Tracker. Close to 900,000 followers can keep tabs on what the Pelosis are buying and selling.
See, I didn't even know it was that many. That's 1 million followers. 1 million people. 900,000 people are making stock decisions based on what Nancy Pelosi and her husband sell and buy. What's going on, John Thompson? That's insane. That shows how corrupt it is. It's so obvious and in our faces that these people are just openly doing it.
Presumably in order to copycat their own way to financial success.
There's a website dedicated to copying Nancy Pelosi's stocks. So that's another who knows how many people. Again, they're probably in the same community because there's a Reddit community for sure. There's multiple Reddit communities. And then I knew there were a lot of people. I didn't realize that it was 1 million, almost 1 million people following her just to copy her stock trading because it's a sure thing.
And that could be making the Pelosi trades have even more of an impact on the market. Yep. Nancy Pelosi's been asked a number of times over the years whether members of Congress and their spouses investing in the market is a sort of conflict of interest. This is from 2021.
Should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock, on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be. Because this is a free market and people, we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
So obviously what she's saying is, no, why would we stop our ability to make this kind of money? Why would we do that? That doesn't make any sense. It's a free market. We can do this. Well, you're the one making hundreds of millions of dollars. So I can see why she would have that attitude. But again, going back to Josh Hawley earlier, I think that's why he took her name off of the bill, because there's no way she's ever going to promote that, because it's pointing out her corruption. And then I think that's also why he stopped the review, the Senate review. Again, it doesn't mean that she can't be investigated. He just stopped one review right before that vote, and he got it through. To me, that's amazing. A lot of people don't agree with it. A lot of people saw it. Some people didn't see it. That's how I see it. But that's all for now for the trading bill. So now we're going to pull up and talk about this Autopen, because again, this is massive, 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 massive story. Let's pull it back up. All right. So before this guy even starts, this guy's name is Theodore Wold. He is a solicitor general. If you don't know what a solicitor general is, the Supreme Court does not take any case. A lot of times they'll defer back to the lower courts because they don't like overturning courts, because it changes precedent. They just don't. They would prefer you to keep appealing to the lower courts before it gets to them, and then if they have to take the case, they'll take it. But they typically do not like taking it. The Solicitor General is the person who would petition them to take the case. So if there's a case on, I don't know, we'll use abortion. So when abortion was legal, people had to petition the courts. They would use other cases to petition the Supreme Court, say, hey, you guys need to see this one. You guys need to make a judgment on this. And this is why. Boom, 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 boom. That's what a Solicitor General does. Wold, or Theodore Wold, whatever his name is, he's a Solicitor General for the state of Ohio or Idaho, whatever. But his job is to petition the Supreme Court for whatever their agenda is. Usually it would be the federal government, or like I said, the state government. That's what his job is. And then if the Supreme Court says yes, his job would be to argue his case, or the state's case, or the government's case, as to why the Supreme Court should make whatever decision he wants you to make, right? The Autopen thing is very, very important because there's no precedent for it. And that's what you're going to hear him talking about. He is now petitioning for someone to do something, because there's an investigation. I think he's, I don't know what organization he's from. Crap. It doesn't say here. Heritage Foundation. No, he's part of an investigative organization, and you're going to hear some of his findings. This story is massive. I don't know Lou Jenkins, if she's of Polish descent. I don't know, but so that's the gist of who this guy is and what he's trying to do.
Founding, the president exercised the executive power through only a small group of trusted advisors and personnel. In fact, President Washington had a 4-member cabinet. Today, the president directs a Leviathan executive branch with 15 cabinet departments and at least 4 million full-time executive branch employees. The executive branch proliferation has a single source of democratic legitimacy: that by order of U.S. Constitution's Article 2, the president is both elected by the American people and vested with the executive power, all of it. Traditionally, the president takes positive actions and authenticates those actions through his signature. His signature is required for the most significant actions he may undertake: to sign an executive order, to take any action invested in him by the Constitution, as in granting a pardon, and to take the most important action of all: to sign a bill into law. In all these cases, the president's signature is itself the protection of democratic principle.
So what he's saying is, we voted him in to do this, and he's the final say. The people have the final say. How? Because they put him there to put that signature. So you have the legislative branch who writes laws. You have the judicial branch who interprets those laws and makes sure we're following those laws. And you have the executive branch. President Trump is the executive branch. That's law enforcement. They enforce all the laws. So his job is to make sure, hey, we're following the law. And that's it. So the reason I say this is the biggest political scandal ever, again, because Joe Biden wasn't running the country. Who was signing the executive orders that he just talked about? Who was signing laws into land? He has the final say. Because the legislature can pass any laws they want. If the president doesn't sign off on it, it's a veto. It's done. Their laws mean nothing until he says, yes, this is what the will of the people states. What they sign are things like proclamations. So when Trump called the Gulf of Mexico and changed it to the Gulf of America, he had to sign off on that. So in my opinion, that would be a fine instance of using an Autopen, because he would have had to say that he wanted it done, and they do it. But this administration, not this one, the last administration, Joe Biden's administration was responsible for the most controversial pardons ever. Like literally blanket pardons dating back a decade, covering any broken laws and any possible broken laws. Anthony Fauci is responsible for millions of deaths in the world, and he got a pardon, and it dated back until, I don't remember what, 2014. All of their pardons weirdly, oddly went back to 2014. His family members, same thing, back to 2014. I think Hunter Biden's were back to 2016, 2015. This has never been done. It's never even been conceived of before. The January 6th committee outright left out testimony. They lied. They blocked the chief or one of the heads of the Secret Service from being able to testify. And they pushed a narrative that it was this insurrection, and they knew it was false. They lied in front of the world on the floors of Congress. That's what they did. They all got blanket pardons. So why that's important is if John Thompson gets into office and he knows he's going to do a blanket pardon backdated to 4 years, he can do anything he wants. That's a literal dictatorship. And if Paul Thomas helps him, don't worry, Paul, we can do whatever we want. We can literally slaughter people. And then we'll go back and I'll pardon both of us. And we can do anything for the next 4 years. That's the implications. I'm not saying that's what happened, but that is the implications of allowing backdated pardons. Now, if you have a president who says he did not do that, you need to look at who did. Because Biden came out 2 weeks ago. I showed it on my last live. He said he ain't helping. I showed it on my last live. He came out and said he didn't authorize all of those pardons, which is why I posted on my wall, respectfully, somebody needs to sit him down and just ask him, did you pardon Paul Thomas? Did you pardon Lou Jenkins? Did you pardon John Thompson? Did you pardon Just Jay? Did you pardon J Country Boy Doug? And he's going to say yes or no. You don't have to do it in a way that's aggressive. Just ask him. Did you do that, sir? Do you remember doing that? Yeah. Oh, no, I didn't do that. No, I wouldn't do that one. I don't even know who that is. That will show us who he did pardon and who he didn't pardon. You don't have to go down the list. He's got like 2,600 pardons. You don't have to go down the list. You just have to go over the ones that are the most controversial. Mr. President, can you explain your pardon to Anthony Fauci? Yeah, I thought he got a bad rap, so I decided to pardon him. Well, he didn't do anything, right? There was no investigations. Well, yeah, I'm trying to stop the investigations because I think, COVID could be blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that would only be dated back to 2020, 2021. Yes. Do you pardon him back to other issues from when Obama was in office? Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. Bam, you just now figured out he had nothing to do with that. You do the same thing with Meghan McCain. I think that's her name. Meghan McCain. Hey, did she know for sure during that January 6th committee about the I want to say supervisor or chief. One of the heads of the Capitol Police wanted to testify and they blocked him from testifying. Did she know that? How do we know? Mr. President, did you pardon Meghan McCain? No, I didn't pardon her. Bam, you now have information on it. And then you can track back from there. Okay, if he didn't do it, who did it? Because there are about 100 other pardons just like that where nobody knows why they were done. People who weren't even implicated in anything. They couldn't even say, yeah, there's nothing to pardon. If he didn't do anything wrong, there's nothing to pardon. But for some reason, he was pardoned dated back to like 2014. That makes no sense to me. If he did nothing wrong, what are you pardoning him from? Anything that was a crime and anything that was a possible crime, which means you can't investigate him dating back 10 years. That's wild. And it doesn't make sense, which is why this story is so important. Who was running the country? It's not just about the pardons. That's one thing. Executive orders that were put out there. Who authorized that? Did he do that? Sit him down respectfully. Don't interrogate the old man. You don't want to do that. Did you guys see him speak yesterday? Oh my gosh. He's way worse. I didn't know it could progress that much. He spoke, I forget where he was speaking, but had he won, this country would be aimless. There definitely wouldn't be negotiating tariffs with other countries and getting hundreds of billions of dollars returns. The border definitely wouldn't be secured. But about the border, who made those decisions? Did he make those decisions? Now he's spoken on some of those things, so okay, we can leave those out of the equation, but then we can ask him, because he always said he wanted to secure the border. What did you do in your time? What executive orders did you sign off on? And then just figure this is not that hard. What they're trying to do is wait it out. This is just like the Epstein stuff, in my opinion. They're going to wait it out past 5 years, past statutes of limitations for almost everything, and then they're going to give us the list. Our word doesn't have a statute of limitations. So who knows when we're going to get this information on the Epstein stuff. But in my opinion, they're just waiting. They're trying to wait it out like they do everything. And they may release the Epstein stuff and, like they're doing JFK and MLK. Like, why do we have to wait this long? 50, 60 years? Like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? This scandal, in my opinion, is about whether or not treason happened. Very much like the Obama thing, but this one to me is still worse because we had 4 years of going against the will of the people directly and having, we don't know who running the country. There's at least 2 staffers who have admitted under the threat of perjury that they had the ability to use the Autopen. Why? So when you're listening to him, he's going to say some stuff. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. This is important because you just heard, I think he said, I don't know which president, had 4 staffers. Well, now he's responsible for 4 million people, 4 million staffers. That's insanity. But that's the size that the government grew. So the Autopen on its own is not a bad thing. It's whether or not the president actually is the one who signed off on stuff, or some random person. Who else was in here? If Jay just came and went, say, you know what, I'm going to make a law saying it's okay for me to do anything I want in the state of Tennessee and pass the law and do an executive order. That's what we have here. We don't know who these people are.
When the president signs, he communicates his assent and endorsement of the action he takes. The Autopen is a device that signs the president's signature to a document. The Oversight Project, of which I am a board member, has discovered that the Biden White House deployed an Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to pardons, prison commutations, executive orders, and presidential proclamations. The Oversight Project's research has found that the Biden White House first deployed the Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to a proclamation on day 5 of his administration, and that there were at least 3 different Autopen signatures in use throughout President Biden's tenure in the White House.
So it immediately started because he was never really there. Day 5, they started using Autopens. Again, it doesn't mean that everything they did with an Autopen is nefarious. But did he approve these things? How do we know he approved of these things? He's going to tell you how you know for sure some of them he did not approve or couldn't have approved.
In June 2022, the Biden White House began deploying the Autopen to sign clemency warrants and executive orders. Autopen use skyrocketed from there. We found that of the 51 clemency warrants issued during the Biden presidency, over half, 32 in total, were signed with an Autopen. And these include some of the most controversial acts of clemency of the Biden presidency, including death row commutations and the preemptive pardons of members of the Biden family, Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, and more that were issued in the final days of the Biden presidency. We reviewed.
Before he keeps going, Mark Milley literally admitted to warning Russia and China. If the U.S. is going to do anything, I'll let you know ahead of time. And he withheld information from the president of the United States at the time. Outright treason. We're not going to war. He's telling enemies of this country, like sworn enemies, people who openly say they want to see the death of America. He's telling them, don't worry. If President Trump decides he's going to do something, I'm going to let you know. He got a blanket pardon. So many people, Hunter Biden didn't do anything. Everything gets wiped away by a blanket pardon. Post-dated. Doesn't make any sense.
President Biden's schedule and his publicly available media, and were unable to find any record of President Biden's personally approving these actions, such as a statement issued by the president himself to reporters. In addition, we found that the Biden White House used the Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to clemency warrants and executive orders while the president himself was in Washington, D.C. for at least some of that day, and thus was presumably available to sign important executive actions.
Why do that if he's there to sign them? Doesn't make sense. He's available to sign these executive orders. He's in town, and you use an Autopen to do it. And there's no record, no email, no text messages, no public announcements that he's going to do something. It just happened.
Finally, we found multiple days where President Biden wet signed a bill into law, but used an Autopen to issue an executive order or for other important executive actions. The Biden White House's widespread use of an Autopen to affix President Biden's signatures to documents that exercise executive powers belonging solely to the president poses significant constitutional, legal, and practical considerations. Once the president's signature is copied and loaded into the Autopen, the machine can sign documents as the president himself would. To be blunt, by using the Autopen, anyone can sign documents as the president himself. Now, to be clear, I'm not here today to suggest that the Autopen is bad. It's just technology. I'm here today because of questions concerning President Biden's capacity and whether the Autopen was used to usurp presidential power or to conceal the president's decline.
And this has been my position way back, going all the way back to when this story broke, which was, he was still in office. It's been at least 8 months, at least. But I think it came out way before January. So we may be going back a year when this story broke, and I'm like, this is huge. This is insanity. I was going on about it then, but because I saw this already, I'm like, the implications of this are just massive. If he's not signing stuff, who's running the country? That I've been saying since he got elected. I don't think he's running the country.
As the sitting president's mental acuity declined, potentially to the point of incapacitation, his administration's expansion of the powers of the presidency raises more questions than answers. Any investigation into this matter should focus not only on whether President Biden directed or authorized subordinate staff to take action in certain instances, but whether he had the capacity to do so at all.
In other words, hey, Mr. President, can you go ahead and sign this? Well, what am I signing? So yeah, he signed it, or he authorized it to sign, but did he even understand what they had him signing? That's what he's saying here. And you can see why he's a solicitor general. He makes a very, very, very good, compelling, detailed case with context as to why it's bad and why it could be bad. But he also makes the case, hey, I'm not saying that it is. I just think we need to look into whether or not A, B, and C happen.
The Fifth Amendment lays out clear procedures for what to do when the president is incapacitated. It was carefully drafted and informed by our nation's history. The Biden administration ignored it all to aggrandize executive power and push the country further in their preferred ideological direction. It is our obligation at this point to get to the bottom of these issues and to ask the important question as to whether or not the Autopen and other devices were used to cover and obscure President Biden's mental decline, undermining our national security and also the Constitution.
Is it? I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than that. I don't know why this isn't a bigger story. I do understand why the Epstein thing was pushed on the back burner for the Obama story, because time is running out on all the active people in that, whatever you want to call it. You can agree or disagree. Actually, if you want to come up and disagree or agree, I'm going to drop this in because I'm pretty much done. I don't really have any more on my presentation. But I think that it was okay to push the Epstein thing. And if you disagree, let me see, can I get rid of that? I want to pin that. If you want to hit the link, tell me why I'm crazy, do that. But I think it is okay. I don't like it, but I also know that the Obama thing is a much bigger story. All the active participants, a lot of them are still in office. And I think we need to weed all those people out. That's way more dangerous than even if you have 100 perverts who did disgusting things under Epstein or who were compromised. I think you have a much bigger case right now to get rid of all these people. These people were committing treason. Obama committed treason. I don't care what anyone says. But what he's going to do, like I said the other day, is he's going to snitch. He's going to give up all the heads of his FBI, CIA, NSA, NI. He's going to get rid of all those people, or DNI. Sorry, and that's going to be his out. And also, I think the government is going to say, yeah, we'll take your plea because as president, you have a lot more ability to get away with stuff, even though it was in writing what he was doing. Hillary has now been implicated. I might do a small video on that, but she knew the whole time, everything. They used her information to do what they did. Obama used her information, her Steele dossier, to commit treason. But yeah, if nobody comes up, that's all I have. It's what's happening in government impacts everyone, whether you know it or not. I think more people need to hear this stuff. It's very, very, very important. Again, if you know anybody who disagrees with this, and you know anybody who would disagree with this, I don't care if it's on Facebook, I don't care if it's on IG, share this with them. Say, hey, this guy wouldn't mind talking to you. Because I'd really be interested in knowing what they think anyway. I want to know how you can come to your conclusions. Cool. I may agree on some of the points, just disagree on solutions if there are any solutions, or how to handle it. Not even actually coming up with a full solution, but just how should we go about getting a solution? I would love to talk to a liberal. I would love to talk to a socialist. I don't like everyone agreeing with everything I say, so I would prefer to have disagreements so other people get others' perspectives. So everyone in the chat can say, "Oh, I never thought about it that way." We may agree on more things than disagree. I would like to have those conversations. So if you know anybody who is a hardcore liberal or socialist, any of that kind of stuff, send them my way. I genuinely would like to talk to them. I won't debate them. I just want to talk to them. I am O Speaks, also known as O Tatum Speaks. If you're new here, like, subscribe, and like I just said, share it with somebody. I think More people need to have open conversations, not just debates. I love watching Piers Morgan's Uncensored because they fight back and forth. But I don't need to do that conversation. I don't need to do that. I would prefer to have a conversation that's that everyone walks away with something. That's just me. And yeah, downsizing it, yes. Oh my goodness. The reason Doge is important is because it showed the world what kind of corruption that there is, how much money is being just wasted and spent. It doesn't need to. How much overlap there are between departments that can be combined, and you can get rid of so many government agencies. They don't need to be there. They haven't always been there. We were fine before those organizations. They serve a purpose, but if it's redundant to something another department is working on, why do we need you? So yeah, that's all I got for you. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Lou Jenkins, appreciate you, sir. Paul Thomas, J Country Dub, or Country Boy Dub, what's up? Thank you, thank you. John Thompson, as always, sir, appreciate you. Uncle L was in here. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you as always. Miss Just J, I think she was my first mod. She was my first one. She was one of two. But yeah, I appreciate you all you guys. If you have something you want me to talk about, send it to me. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know what you guys are interested in. I just know what I'm interested in, what I know is important, and what I know needs to get out. So I can always work out those topics and put them out also. Thank you again. Appreciate you guys. O Speaks. Out.